Welcome to today's video. Today's topic is how to change triggers into relief. So we're talking about triggers in terms of chronic pain. They can be triggers like emotionally based or sensation based, or they can be triggers that affect the five senses that we have. And the trigger in itself, it's the tension. So we need to understand that by allowing it, the trigger, to be that tension, it has the effect on us. It has the effect that it seemingly creates the pain, the migraine, the whatever it is, the emotional outburst, the attack of anger or whatever, that then we basically regret we're having that. So we need to understand that the triggers are the tension in themselves. We can be talking about triggers affecting all our five senses. They can be light, they can be sound, smells, and all of that. I call them basically the secondary triggers because the initial trigger is always the same. It's the tension, and it's hidden behind. It's basically the story we tell ourselves behind the physical trigger. Okay, so especially, for example, talking about migraines or chronic pain, we, after some time, we're observing ourselves, we're studying ourselves, and we can see what things are better to avoid in order to avoid a migraine, what things basically seemingly create the migraine. And for a long time I worked on only, I call this like the surface level, and I worked only with this because that was all I could understand before I went deeper. And you can go deeper behind the trigger, and then it's gonna be always the tension, the limiting beliefs, basically the fear that based in fear that results in tension for a various reasons, from experiences that we've had with these situations, or just a decision we made on the subconscious level and things like that. And so the deeper level is understanding that whatever the trigger, we can change that into it not being the trigger anymore. So if with, for example, migraines, we talk about smells and light, how everything becomes like triggering and we become sensitive to everything, we actually, even if we're highly sensitive or however we call ourselves, I think that's just an ability we can develop to be highly sensitive, and knowing ourselves is the development of the high sensitivity in itself. But understanding that the trigger in itself is behind the trigger that it seems, and the trigger is in the purest form, it's always going to be energy. So we can teach ourselves, this is what the self-healing journey is about. We're learning how to see the trigger as energy instead of as the done story, the story that we're telling ourselves, the light. We're basically blaming it on something that's outside of us, but inside of us is the energy that's the foundation. This is how manifestation works. This is how you are the creator of your life. This is how you're responsible for everything in your life, because behind all is the energy inside you. So that needs to be understood in order to start changing the triggers into the relief, because then we can directly access the trigger in the form of energy, and we bring the relief into that tension. There are various ways how we do this. Breathing and crying are a good way, and it's always necessary to obviously change it. We can work on it before. We can develop abilities to like breathing techniques or meditation are those that allow us to prevent the triggers from being so strong or so frequent. So this is what we can do in the, I always divide the pain in itself as a state of without the pain, which is where we can take steps that allow us to strengthen our confidence, strengthen our relationship with ourselves, and strengthen our ability to be connected with ourselves, which can be different techniques, whatever works for you. It's gonna be consistent of self-love, it's gonna be self-attention, just observing yourself, it's gonna be connecting with your breath, different breathing techniques, it's gonna be meditation or exercise, whatever helps you reconnect with yourself. And then in the state of the action, basically, of the trigger itself, then again it's gonna be breathing, basically coming back to the breath that you have learned, coming back to the state of meditation, coming back to the relief that can be in the form of crying. So allowing yourself to be there with the trigger, but start moving it into the flow, back into the flow, because the flow of energy, the exchange, giving and receiving, is the state of healthiness. It's the state of the healthy body. It's the constant exchange. We're receiving something and we're giving something. And it's a constant cycle. And that's the state where we can be satisfied with ourselves. We can be working, living on the daily basis, coping with life and enjoying life, feeling it through in an authentic, sustainable way. Basically feeling good with ourselves. That's the flow. That's where creativity flows. We're inspired. We know when to rest. We know when to take action. We're fully connected. That's the flow. So we want to achieve the flow, because if there are triggers in our lives, those are the moments we need to heal in order to come back to that natural, healthy state. Because the natural state of the body is without pain, is healthy. And in order to get back to that, we need to address those triggers directly, see them as energy, and allow them to be flow again. Because they have been stopped to protect us. We have stopped that energy inside our being. We have stopped it with fear, based on whatever the reason, based on the previous experiences, and that is probably then accumulating and causing the pain on a repetitive pattern, in a repetitive way, in a chronic way, in a repeating itself way. But we can address whether it's some stored trauma in our body, whether it's a repetitive situation that comes up in our lives and it's something someone says and it triggers us a lot. I've had a triggering morning, so I have been releasing, and it's not a coincidence I'm talking about this topic today, because it helped me remember. I added crying in the list in today's video, because I work with this on a daily basis. I acknowledge that, okay, there's some tension. Why am I tense in this situation? Because I notice things that I haven't been noticing about myself earlier, before my own self-healing journey. So now I can notice that, okay, there is some tension. Whatever the situation throughout the day, I can now notice, and this is what we need to learn step by step, to be more aware and notice yourself better when you're tensing up, because the pain itself is the result of all of these warnings before. The migraine itself is the relief, the big relief of the tension. But we need to start relieving the tension, transforming the tension into relief before the big, let's say, explosion, before the final chronic pain arrives on a daily basis. So this goes basically to any type of chronic pain. We can set an example with menstruation pain, which I talk a lot about and I hear from my clients a lot about that. Yeah, this is a great example. Pain associated with menstruation is a great example because it's not just originating out of nowhere every month. It's a lot of limiting beliefs, it's a lot of beliefs that it must hurt, but it is a series of tensions and triggers throughout our month. So if we learn how to release those tensions, change the triggers into relief throughout the month, then the menstruation, which is a cleansing process and it's a relief in itself and it's a reset of the body, can then be a very pleasant experience and a very pain-free one and a very empowering one on the other side. And if this is a good point, because if what happens when we don't change the triggers into relief, the triggers start controlling us and start putting us down, start putting our confidence down, and they take our power because we're feeding so much stuff with our energy. That's the stored energy. So then if it's stored, it's not available to you in the flow. If it's stored somewhere in your body, in your being. Okay, so the fact that the fact that someone can say something that triggers you, or something outside of you can trigger you, is the fact that you're feeding some pain, some fear from the past, or whatever it is. It's not so important to really understand it, to be able to change it into relief, because we can always bring the relief into that tension. We can allow it to flow. We can allow with the breathing to spread it out instead of saving it at ourselves, because that's the opposite what we do, unfortunately. In the era of all the medication available, we unfortunately suppress it, we escape it, we're gonna use whatever to escape ourselves. It seems like the easier way, it's the faster way in the short term, but in the long term, this is what actually feeds the pain, the chronic pain. So the more we're gonna be suppressing these little triggers and we're gonna say, not now, it's fine, I can hold this one in, and this is exactly the problem. Once we start holding these things in and we don't process it within ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean we need to get into a fight. We don't need to persuade someone that that is triggering us. It's okay to communicate it in a healthy way, but it is something we can deal with within ourselves, and then miraculously that topic shifts and it won't be triggering you at all anymore, the more we change it into relief. And yeah, even at some point, the exaggeration, the opposite exaggeration, is what once was a trigger can bring you relief. It can turn into relief. It's another windy day, but a very hot day here in South Africa. So the camera is a bit wobbly, but I hope you can hear me well, and I hope you can see me without too much movement. And I'm just gonna check what I have here in my notes. Action, that is, yeah, it's always about some action connected to the trigger. This helps us identify the trigger, but not always, we don't always have to understand, why am I tensing up now? Why am I afraid? Why am I triggered by this? But the important thing is to allow the flow of it again. To allow the energy to flow. You can add gratitude into it, which fortifies it. You can add forgiveness to yourself at the same time. That helps with basically the unconditional love and acceptance of yourself, which means I don't need to understand why I'm scared right now, why I'm tensing up, why I feel like this, but I'm okay with that. I can allow myself to flow. I can allow myself to be whatever I need to be right now at the moment, and I can allow this energy to be released, and I can feel relief even if in those same situations in the past I have felt tension and it has led to chronic pain. If we have developed our chronic pain very well, then we even project into the future that this will then cause me the pain. This will cause me migraine. I used to be a lot. It was just my reality. I didn't know how to deal with it better. That's why today I teach a different, more sustainable, healthy way. But yeah, I was in the cycle of the triggers, that whenever something triggered me, I was sure to get a migraine. Today I work with this way more freely, and also it's good to not identify yourself with that thing, and especially if you create acceptance within yourself with that aspect of your life. It can be whatever aspect that can be triggering you. So once you create a healthy relationship within yourself, then what others will trigger you with will be less strong, and it will be easier to then identify, okay, there's still some energy stored regarding this topic, and I can turn it into relief. And if you want to change the way you feel while doing things, you must take action in the state of relief with that trigger instead of taking action in the state of tension. Yeah, and this is how the triggers then connect to what happens next. Meaning how I described my situation, that it used to be like this for me, that I took action from the state of the tension, which means this is the trigger, and that trigger is gonna cause my non-well-being, my pain, my chronic pain. It's gonna cause something bad for me. That is identifying with that trigger. But instead, we can change the story behind it. We can change what we tell ourselves, because life is what we believe it is. Life is about the story we're telling ourselves, and we can always change the story we're telling ourselves. So you can change this into, okay, there's a trigger, and I'm gonna just be there with the trigger, and I'm not gonna take action until the trigger is over, until I allow it, because it can be very easy, and it is very easy to turn the tension into flow back, turn the energy. It's not like there's some stuff, static energy forever stored. It has layers, but to uncover that layer and allow it to flow allow that one layer to flow, it's very easy. It takes a few breaths. It takes you telling yourself, I'm relaxing right now, I'm relaxed, and that's all it takes. So it can be very easy, but it's about not going over the trigger, but being there with yourself and taking action after that trigger has gone into relief, after you have relaxed yourself, after you have connected with your breath. And then I can take that action. I'm not going to take the action from the state of the trigger. because if we're scared, then we quickly want to take that action from the place of fear, but that only produces more fear, and this is how we cycle in the fear, and this is how we repetitively have the chronic pain. But instead, we need to be there for ourselves if we're afraid, even if it's subconsciously and we don't understand why. Logically, there's no explanation of why we're afraid, but just for some reason we are. There's some stored energy that needs to flow again, and this is how we gain slowly the confidence that we can do it and that we can be there for ourselves, and nothing is important than ourselves at that moment, because we often take action from the tension, and this is as if you told your body the action is more important than the being, the action is more important than me. But this then does a separation, and this is where the pain occurs, once you separate from yourself, from what you're feeling. And this is where the pain occurs. So we need to reconnect with ourselves, not escape ourselves. So we need to be there with the trigger, allow the flow, and then take action after we have dealt with that trigger. Just take a moment for yourself. Whatever the situation, we think we can't take a moment for ourselves, but there's always a moment, and the moment's gonna grow as you learn to value yourself more, as you learn to love yourself more, as you learn to appreciate yourself more. And this is where there's no more reason for the body to create chronic pain. Changing tension, this is like a recap. Changing tension into relief, observing your body and emotions, noticing when things are static instead of flowing, and bringing in the flow again. With breath, for example, breathing and crying are the two good ways to allow the flow again. Crying is the flow of life. If you haven't read Louise's Heal Yourself, then you should. And crying helps you to put into flow that stored energy, allows you to just allow the flow of it, to release it, but the same way perfectly can work even the breath. And you become stronger as you practice this, and then you learn how to connect with this. Alright, so this is it for today's video. I hope this resonates. I hope you found what you were looking for in this video about how to change triggers into relief. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.